The Israelites are now free from Egypt and are traveling toward Mount Sinai. But while traveling to Mount Sinai, they complained to Moses and Aaron that they did not have enough food or water for this trip. Will the Lord provide them with enough food and water? Then what is the significance of Mount Sinai? Let's find out. Hey everyone, welcome to Tally Talks Bible. When we last left off, the Israelites had just fled from Egypt and then crossed the Red Sea. Well, once they got across the Red Sea, Moses outstretched his hand and the Red Sea closed back upon itself and took out all the Egyptians. So now they're free from Egypt and they're going to be traveling towards Mount Sinai. Now, this is just going to be a video on their trip to Mount Sinai. Some stuff happens on the way. A lot of complaining and griping and not trusting in the Lord happens, as per usual with, the people of this time. So what's going to happen is they're going to be traveling, things are going to happen, and God and Moses are going to have to talk to see what to do with these Israelites. So I'm going to pick up on chapter 16, and it's going to begin. The whole Israelite community set out from Elim and came to the desert of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai. On the 15th day of the second month after they had come out of Egypt, in the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted, but you have brought us out into the desert to starve this entire assembly to death." The Lord said to Moses, "I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for the day. In this way I will test them and see whether they will follow my instructions." So here we have it right now, right at the start of this chapter. They've been out there, they've been wandering for a while, they've been walking, but now they're starting to complain, we're going to die out here. We don't have enough food to survive. It would be better if we just died back in Egypt than to die out here in the wilderness. So they're griping and complaining, even after they've seen the Lord do all these things. Instead of saying, praying to the Lord, "Hey, Lord, what are we going to do about food?" they complaining right to Moses about it. And so now the Lord is going to give them instructions on what to do. And this is going to lead up to what we know as Sabbath. So let's continue on with verse 5. On the 6th day, they are to prepare what they bring in, and that is to be twice as much as they gather on the other days. So Moses and Aaron said to all the Israelites, "In the evening you will know that it was the Lord who brought you out of Egypt. And in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are we, that you should grumble against us?" Moses also said, "You will know that it was the Lord when he gives you meat to eat in the evening and all the bread you want in the morning, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are we? You are not grumbling against us, but against the Lord." So Moses is telling them what's going to happen, that they're going to be going out and gathering food, but on the 6th day, before the 7th, they're together twice as much. And he's also stating, hey, you're complaining to us, but you're not really complaining to us. You're complaining about the Lord. You're grumbling against him, not us. We don't have the control over these things. So picking up back up on verse 9. Then Moses told Aaron, "Say to the entire Israelite community, 'Come before the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling.'" While Aaron was speaking to the whole Israelite community, they looked toward the desert, and there was the glory of the Lord appearing in the cloud. The Lord said to Moses, "I have heard the grumbling of the Israelites. Tell them, at twilight you will eat meat, and in the morning you will be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God." That evening quail came and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the dew was gone, thin flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, "What is it?" But they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, "It is the bread the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Everyone is to gather as much as they need. Take a omer for each person you have in your tent." The Israelites did as they were told. Some gathered much, some little. And when they measured it by the omer, the one who gathered much did not have too much, and the one who gathered little did not have too little. Everyone had gathered just as much as they needed. Yeah, excuse me. I'm still just a tad sick, trying to get over it. Got some congestion going on. So now we have what's going to be called manna, which is like a bread substance. And they're to go out every day and gather what's called an omer of it. Omer, I mean, it's they say it comes into terms like later on that it's like equivalent to like a gallon. But basically what they're saying here is it's just enough for a daily provision. just enough for them to eat. And it made note that even if you gathered a whole bunch of it, you still only got what you needed. And if you gathered too little, some people didn't get a whole lot, they still had enough. It still equaled out that everybody got what they needed. And Moses said to them, no one is to keep any of it until morning. However, some of them paid no attention to Moses. They kept part of it until morning, but it was full of maggots and began to smell. So Moses was angry with them. Each morning, everyone gathered as much as they needed, and when the sun grew hot, it melted away. On the sixth day, they gathered twice as much, 2 omers. For each person, and the leaders of the community came and reported this to Moses. He said to them, this is what the Lord commanded. Tomorrow is the day of Sabbath rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. So bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil. Save whatever is left and keep it until morning. So they saved it until morning, and Moses commanded, it did not stink or get maggots in it. Eat it today. Moses said, because today is the Sabbath to the Lord. You will not find any of it on the ground today. 6 days you are to gather it, but on the seventh day, the Sabbath, there will not be any. Right here, it's talking about the Sabbath. This is or Shabbat is what they call it in Hebrew. So it's a day of rest. And this is going to come up here, and I'll go more in detail about what that is further in. It's actually going to be in my next video. We'll be getting into the 10 Commandments, and it's one of the 10 Commandments that comes up. But here it's the start of it. It's showing this is something that they need to do, and this is actually it started way back in Genesis, in the 7-day creation. The Lord made everything in 6 days, and on the 7th day He rested and made it holy. And this is something that was practiced back then. People still practice it today. I myself practice Sabbath. But this right here is where it's really starting to put it down that this is what the Lord commands us to do as people. All right, so picking back up on 27, of course, human beings being human beings. Nevertheless, some of the people went out on the 7th day to gather it, but they found none. Then the Lord said to Moses, how long will you refuse to keep my commands and my instructions? Bear in mind that the Lord has given you the Sabbath. That is why on the 6th day He gives you bread for 2 days. Everyone is to stay where they are on the 7th day. No one is to go out. So the people rested on the 7th day. The people of Israel called the bread manna. It was white like coriander seed and tasted like wafers made with honey. Moses said, this is what the Lord has commanded. Take an omer of manna and keep it for generations to come, so they can see the bread I gave you to eat in the wilderness when I brought you out of Egypt. So Moses said to Aaron, take a jar and put an omer of manna in it, then place it before the Lord to be kept for the generations to come. As the Lord commanded, Aaron put the manna with the tablets of the covenant wall, so that it might be preserved. The Israelites ate manna 40 years until they came to the land that was settled. They ate manna until they reached the border of Canaan. An omer is 1/10 of an ephah. Excuse me. So here it's talking about they were given this manna for 40 years until they made it to Canaan. And it's still going to take them a while to get to Canaan. And that 40 years is significant here. And we'll come back up later on. But that takes care of that chapter. Now, chapter 17, it's a shorter chapter, but now they're complaining and grumbling again. First, they're complaining they didn't have enough food. Now they're going to be complaining that they don't have water. And the Lord's going to answer them and provide them with water, just like He provided them with food. The whole Israelite community set out from the desert of Sin, traveling from place to place as the Lord commanded. They camped at Ribden, but there was no water for the people to drink. So they quarreled with Moses and said, give us water to drink. Moses replied, why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the war to the test? But the people were thirsty for water there, and they grumbled against Moses. They said, why did you bring us up out of Egypt to make us and our children and livestock die of thirst? Then Moses cried out to the Lord, what am I to do with these people? They're almost ready to stone me. The Lord answered Moses, go out in front of the people. Take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile and go. I will stand there before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it for the people to drink. So Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel, and he called the place Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled, and because they tested the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not? Again, they're crying, complaining. The Lord had just provided them with food, and now they're saying there's not enough water. Like the Lord wasn't providing for them. So the Lord answers their call. They're grumbling, they're complaining, tells Moses what to do. it provides them with water. They're still just constantly showing a lack of faith in the Lord. And it's not going to stop here. It's going to keep happening time and time again, and it's going to get worse and worse as it goes on. This next part of this chapter is going to be the first battle that they encounter while they're in the wilderness. And it's going to pick up on verse 8. The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, "Choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands." So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone, put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on one side and one on the other, so that his hands remained steady till sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven." Moses built an altar and called it, "The Lord is my banner." He said, because hands were lifted up against the throne of the Lord would be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation. So in this section, we hear the mention of the name Joshua. Now, Joshua is going to be important later on after Exodus, and we'll get more detail with that. But this is the first mention of him in the Bible. And he's, like a warrior, a leader of the army for the Israelites. And it was made mention, too, that God doesn't command Moses to hold the staff up. Moses is just going off the fact that he's used the staff, and Aaron has used the staff to do these miracles, or these, back in Egypt when he was doing the plagues, he just used the staff to strike the rock to get water. So he knows there's power in the staff. So he's decided to use the staff and hold it above his head. And while it was above his head, Joshua and his men were winning against the Amalekites. But if it fell, the Amalekites would start to turn the tide and be winning themselves. And that's when Aaron and Hur step in and help Moses by holding it up. But God never commanded him to do this. This is just something he did on his own. That wraps up that chapter. Of course, as we've been seeing here, the people keep coming to Moses and complaining and griping and complaining. And, and it didn't start here. It just started back before, they were crossing the Red Sea. They were griping, complaining, "Oh, we're going to die. It would be better if we stayed in Egypt. Why have you brought us out here to die?" Everything's being pushed on Moses. Like, why is this happening? And it's taken up on Moses and Aaron both. But a lot of people are looking to Moses. And in the time of, in between the the Israelites being free from Egypt, Moses sent his wife and sons back to his father-in-law, Jethro, in Midian. So now Jethro is going to reach out to Moses. Now Jethro, the priest of Midian, and the father-in-law of Moses, heard of everything God had done for Moses and for his people of Israel, and how the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. After Moses had sent away his wife Zipporah, his father-in-law Jethro received her and her 2 sons. One son was named Geshem, for Moses said, "I have become a foreigner in a foreign land." And the other one was named Eliezer, for he said, "My father's God was my helper. He saved me from the sword of Pharaoh." Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, together with Moses, his sons, and wife, came to him in the wilderness, where he was camped near the mountain of God. Jethro has sent word to him, "I, your father-in-law, Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and her 2 sons." So Moses went out to meet his father-in-law and bowed down and kissed him. They greeted each other and then went into the tent. Moses told his father-in-law about everything the Lord had done to Pharaoh and the Egyptians for Israel's sake, and about all the hardships they had met along the way, and how the Lord had saved them. Jethro was delighted to hear about all the good things the Lord had done for Israel in rescuing them from the hand of the Egyptians. He said, "Praise be to the Lord, who rescued from the hand of Egyptians and of Pharaoh, and who rescued the people from the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all other gods, for he did this to those who had treated Israel arrogantly." Then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and offered sacrifice to God, and Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat a meal with Moses' father-in-law in the presence of God. So here we have Jethro. They had their own little religious sect going on, but it doesn't necessarily say that he's like converted or anything like that. Circumcision was a big deal for that, but he's given up. He's saying that Yahweh is the God above all gods. He recognizes his power and his greatness. Something the Israelites don't even realize, since they've been complaining and griping the whole time. But Jethro gives an offering, gives up praise to the Lord. And like I said, it doesn't state that he starts, following the ways of Yahweh, but it would make sense that he would, since, Moses is his son-in-law, and he's heard of all these great things that has happened. And now in this next part, Moses is going to be talking about how everybody's been coming to them, and Jethro is going to throw down some wisdom on it. And begins on verse 13. The next day, Moses took his seat to serve as judge for the people, and they stood around him from morning till evening. When his father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he said, "What is this you are doing for the people? Why do you alone sit as judge, while all these people stand around you from morning till evening?" Moses answered him, "Because the people come to me to seek God's will. Whenever they have a dispute, it is brought to me, and I decide between the parties, and inform them of God's decree and instructions." Moses' father-in-law replied, "What are you doing? What you are doing is not good. You and these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. Listen now to me, and I will give you some advice, and may God be with you. You must be the people's representative before God, and bring their disputes to him. Teach them his decrees and instructions, and show them the way they are to live and how they are to behave. But select capable men from all the people who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Have them serve as judges for the people at all times, but have them bring every difficult case to you. The simple cases they can decide themselves. That will make your load lighter, because they will share it with you. If you do this, and God so commands, you will be able to stand the strain, and all the peoples will go home satisfied." Moses listened to his father-in-law and did everything he said. He chose capable men from all Israel and made them leaders of the people, officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. They served as judges for the people at all times. The difficult cases they brought to Moses, but the simple ones they decided themselves. Then Moses sent his father-in-law on his way, and Jethro returned to his own country. So here we go, a man who's not an Israelite, has not been, a pristine follower of Yahweh, is laying down some wisdom on Moses and saying, "Hey, this is how things need to work out." And if you're like me, these things don't just happen. Moses was meant to be in Egypt. He was meant to be saved. The Lord used all the women in Egypt to save Moses to where he could grow up. He was meant to be exiled out of Egypt. He was meant to be in Midian to meet Jethro and marry Zipporah. And it's no coincidence that Jethro comes back to him in this time of need. In this time of need where all these people are griping and complaining and all this. And now they're going to have a way to deal with all these people's complaints and things of that nature. But now they're going to be at Mount Sinai, and this chapter is just it's another little short chapter. It's 25 verses, and that's where I'm going to stop this video. It's just going to talk about being in and around Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai is where the burning bush was, and where Moses met God for the first time and spoke with him. But the mountain is holy. So if anybody gets near it, they're pretty much dead. They've got to be clean. And this chapter just kind of breaks down and lays down some rules for that. On the first day of the third month after the Israelites left Egypt, on that very day they came to the desert of Sinai. After they set out from Rephidim, they entered the desert of Sinai, and Israel camped there in the desert in front of the mountain. Then Moses went up to God, and the Lord called him from the mountain and said, "This is what you are to say to the descendants of Jacob, and what you are to tell the people of Israel. You yourselves have been what I did. You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all the nations you will be my treasured possession, although the whole earth is mine. You will be for me a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. These are the words you are to speak to the Israelites." So here we see the Lord is telling him, as long as everybody, he says descendants of Jacob. If you remember, Jacob had 12 sons. These are all the descendants of Jacob. Jacob's name was changed to Israel. This is where we get the Israelites. But he mentions it descendants of Jacob instead of descendants of Israel here. And he's also saying, keep this covenant, then you will be like a precious possession of mine. Even though the whole world is mine, you will be set apart as precious to me. And this is like the first little mention of they're going to be a kingdom of priests. What priests are supposed to do, they're supposed to spread the word and everything like that. And they take care of, you're going to understand when the priesthood comes in later on, they're going to be really taking care of like sacrifices and things of that nature. That's going to be their main duty. Picking back up on verse 7. So Moses went back and summoned the elders of the people and set before them all the words the Lord had commanded him to speak. The people all responded together, "We will do everything the Lord has said." So Moses brought their answer back to the Lord. The Lord said to Moses, "I am going to come to you in a dense cloud, so that the people will hear me speaking with you and will always put their trust in you." Moses told the Lord what the people had said. And the Lord said to Moses, "Go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow. Have them wash their clothes and be ready by the third day, because on that day the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. Put limits for the people around the mountain and tell them, be careful that you do not approach the mountain or touch the foot of it. Whoever touches the mountain is to be put to death. They are to be stoned or shot with arrows. Not a hand is to be laid on them. No person or animal shall be permitted to live. Only when the ram's horn sounds a long blast may they approach the mountain." So what he's saying here now is because the area is so holy and sanctified that if you come around it and touch it, and no one is to touch the person that touches it because they're unclean. And a lot of this stuff is going to be coming out once I start on the next one. And actually, the next part, the 10 Commandments, is going to be multiple parts. I want to kind of get into more detail on the commandments. So they need to be holy. They need to be, wash their clothes, be clean, things of that nature. Moses had gone down the mountain to the people. He consecrated them, and they washed their clothes. Then he said to the people, "Prepare yourselves for the third day, abstain from sexual relations." On the morning of the third day, there was thunder and lightning with a thick cloud over the mountain, and very loud trumpet blast. Everyone in the camp trembled. Then Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because the Lord descended on it in fire. The smoke billowed up from it like smoke from a furnace, and the whole mountain trembled violently. As the sound of the trumpets grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and the voice of God answered him. The Lord ascended to the top of Mount Sinai and called Moses to the top of the mountain. So Moses went up, and the Lord said to him, "Go down and warn the people, so they do not force their way through to see the Lord, and many of them perish. Even the priests who approach the Lord must consecrate themselves, or the Lord will break out against them." Moses said to the Lord, "The people cannot come up Mount Sinai because you yourself warned us. Put limits around the mountain and set apart it as holy." The Lord replied, "Go down and bring Aaron up with you, but the priests and the people must not force their way through to come up to the Lord, or he will break out against them." So Moses went down to the people and told them. So it just was reiterating there that they must be clean, they must be holy, but tell them not to come near, because if they do, they will die. That I will come out against them and they will die. But he does say to go get Aaron and bring him up. And so now Moses and Aaron are going up to Mount Sinai, and the people have agreed to the covenant that the Lord, is laying out before them. They're agreeing that we're going to follow your commands, your decrees, your instructions. We're all in. We are all in. We're ready to do this. But some things are going to go crazy. We're going to get the 10 Commandments next. And like I said, I'm probably going to do at least 2 videos, maybe 3 videos on that subject. Well, that's it for now. I'd like to thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. And as always, God bless.